على القوم الكافرين آمين. شهد الله أنه لا إله إلا هو والملائكة وأولو العلم قائما بالقسط لا إله إلا هو العزيز الحكيم. وأنا أشهد بما شهد الله به وأشهد الله على ذلك وأستودع الله هذه الشهادة وهي لي عند الله وديعة أسأله حفظها حتى يتوفاني عليها. إن الدين عند الله الإسلام. قل اللهم مالك الملك اللهم مالك الملك تؤتي الملك من تشاء وتنزع الملك ممن تشاء وتعز من تشاء وتذل من تشاء بيدك الخير إنك على كل شيء قدير. تولج الليل في النهار وتولج النهار في الليل وتخرج الحي من الميت وتخرج الميت من الحي وترزق من تشاء بغير حساب. رحمن الدنيا والآخرة ورحيمهما تعطي من تشاء منهما وتمنع من تشاء. أنت ترحمنا فارحمنا رحمة تغننا بها عن رحمة من سواك. اللهم اقض عنا الدين واغننا من الفقر. الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. Page 146 and 147, the word of Sayyidina Sheikh Abu Bakr bin Salim. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. اللهم يا عظيم السلطان يا قديم الإحسان يا دائم النعم يا كثير الجود يا واسع العطاء يا خفي اللطف يا جميل الصنع يا حليما لا يعجل صل يا رب على سيدنا محمد وآله وسلم وارض عن الصحابة أجمعين. اللهم لك الحمد شكرا ولك المن فضلا وأنت ربنا حقا ونحن عبيدك رقا وأنت لم تزل لذلك أهلا. يا ميسر كل عسير ويا جابر كل كسير ويا صاحب كل فريد ويا مغني كل فقير ويا مقوي كل ضعيف ويا مأمن كل مخيف يسر علينا كل عسير فتيسير العسير عليك يسير. اللهم يا من لا يحتاج إلى البيان والتفسير حاجاتنا كثير وأنت عالم بها وخبير. اللهم إني أخاف منك وأخاف ممن يخاف منك وأخاف ممن لا يخاف منك. اللهم بحق من يخاف منك نجنا ممن لا يخاف منك. اللهم بحق سيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم احرسنا بعينك التي لا تنام، واكنفنا بكنفك الذي لا يرام، وارحمنا بقدرتك علينا فلا نهلك، وأنت ثقتنا ورجاؤنا. وصلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم، والحمد لله رب العالمين، عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. اللهم إنا نسألك زيادة في الدين وبركة في العمر وصحة في الجسد وسعة في الرزق وتوبة قبل الموت وشهادة عند الموت ومغفرة بعد الموت وعفوا عند الحساب وأمانا من العذاب ونصيبا من الجنة، وارزقنا النظر إلى وجهك الكريم. صلى الله على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين، عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشي ومداد كلماته.
اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وهذه الفاتحة.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Page 152 and 153, the Wird al-Latif of Imam al-Haddad. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل هو الله أحد الله الصمد لم يلد ولم يولد ولم يكن له كفوا أحد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الفلق من شر ما خلق ومن شر غاسق إذا وقب ومن شر النفاثات في العقد ومن شر حاسد إذا حسد. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. قل أعوذ برب الناس ملك الناس إله الناس من شر الوسواس الخناس الذي يوسوس في صدور الناس من الجنة والناس. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي يحضرون. ربي أعوذ بك من همزات الشياطين وأعوذ بك ربي يحضرون. أفحسبتم أنما خلقناكم عبثا وأنكم إلينا لا ترجعون. فتعالى الله الملك الحق لا إله إلا هو رب العرش الكريم. ومن يدع مع الله إلها آخر لا برهان له به فإنما حسابه عند ربه إنه لا يفلح الكافرون. وقل رب اغفر وارحم وأنت خير الراحمين. فسبحان الله حين تمسون وحين تصبحون وله الحمد في السماوات والأرض وعشيا وحين تظهرون. يخرج الحي من الميت ويخرج الميت من الحي ويحيي الأرض بعد موتها وكذلك تخرجون. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم. لو أنزلنا هذا القرآن على جبل لرأيته خاشعا متصدعا من خشية الله. وتلك الأمثال نضربها للناس لعلهم يتفكرون. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو عالم الغيب والشهادة هو الرحمن الرحيم. هو الله الذي لا إله إلا هو الملك القدوس السلام المؤمن المهيمن العزيز الجبار المتكبر سبحان الله عما يشركون. هو الله الخالق البارئ المصور له الأسماء الحسنى يسبح له ما في السماوات والأرض وهو العزيز الحكيم. سلام على نوح في العالمين إنا كذلك نجزي المحسنين إنه من عبادنا المؤمنين. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. أعوذ بكلمات الله التامات من شر ما خلق. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. بسم الله الذي لا يضر مع اسمه شيء في الأرض ولا في السماء وهو السميع العليم. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت منك في نعمة وعافية وستر فأتمم نعمتك علي وعافيتك وسترك في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. اللهم إني أصبحت أشهدك وأشهد حملة عرشك وملائكتك وجميع خلقك أنك أنت الله لا إله إلا أنت وحدك لا شريك لك وأن سيدنا محمدا عبدك ورسولك. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه يكافي مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه يكافي مزيدا. الحمد لله رب العالمين حمدا يوافي نعمه يكافي مزيدا. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. آمنت بالله العظيم وكفرت بالجبت والطاغوت واستمسكت بالعروة الوثقى لا انفصام لها والله السميع العليم. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. رضيت بالله ربا وبالإسلام دينا وبسيدنا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم نبيا ورسولا. عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. حسبي الله لا إله إلا هو عليه توكلت هو رب العرش العظيم. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وآله وصحبه وسلم. 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 اللهم إني أسألك من فجاءة الخير وأعوذ بك من فجاءة الشر. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت خلقتني وأنا عبدك وأنا على عهدك ووعدك ما استطعت. أعوذ بك من شر ما صنعت. أبوء لك بنعمتك علي وأبوء بذنبي فاغفر لي فإنه لا يغفر الذنوب إلا أنت. اللهم أنت ربي لا إله إلا أنت عليك توكلت وأنت رب العرش العظيم. ما شاء الله كان ما لم يشأ لم يكن ولا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم. أعلم أن الله على كل شيء قدير وأن الله قد أحاط بكل شيء علما. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من شر نفسي ومن شر كل دابة أنت آخذ بناصيتها، إن ربي على صراط مستقيم. يا حي يا قيوم برحمتك أستغيث ومن عذابك أستجير. أصلح لي شأني كله ولا تكلني إلى نفسي ولا إلى أحد من خلقك طرفة عين. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من الهم والحزن، وأعوذ بك من العجز والكسل، وأعوذ بك من الجبن والبخل، وأعوذ بك من غلبة الدين وقهر الرجال. اللهم إني أسألك العافية في الدنيا والآخرة. اللهم إني أسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في ديني ودنياي وأهلي ومالي. اللهم استر عوراتي وآمن روعاتي. اللهم احفظني من بين يدي ومن خلفي وعن يميني وعن شمالي ومن فوقي، وأعوذ بعظمتك أن أغتال من تحتي. اللهم أنت خلقتني وأنت تهديني وأنت تطعمني وأنت تسقيني وأنت تميتني وأنت تحييني وأنت على كل شيء قدير. أصبحنا على فطرة الإسلام وعلى كلمة الإخلاص وعلى دين نبينا محمد صلى الله عليه وآله وسلم وعلى ملة أبينا إبراهيم حنيفا مسلما وما كان من المشركين. اللهم بك أصبحنا وبك أمسينا وبك نحيا وبك نموت وعليك نتوكل وإليك النشور. أصبحنا وأصبح الملك لله والحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم، فتحه ونصره ونوره وبركته وهداه. اللهم إني أسألك خير هذا اليوم وخير ما فيه وخير ما قبله وخير ما بعده، وأعوذ بك من شر هذا اليوم وشر ما فيه وشر ما قبله وشر ما بعده. اللهم ما أصبح بي من نعمة أو بأحد من خلقك فمنك وحدك لا شريك لك، فلك الحمد ولك الشكر على ذلك. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشه ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله العظيم وبحمده عدد خلقي ورضا نفسي وزنة عرشي ومداد كلماته. سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في السماء، سبحان الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض، سبحان الله عدد ما بين ذلك، سبحان الله عدد ما هو خالق. الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في السماء، الحمد لله عدد ما خلق في الأرض، الحمد لله عدد ما بين ذلك، الحمد لله عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في السماء، لا إله إلا الله عدد ما خلق في الأرض، لا إله إلا الله عدد ما بين ذلك، لا إله إلا الله عدد ما هو خالق.
الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في السماء،
الله أكبر عدد ما خلق في الأرض، الله أكبر عدد ما بين ذلك، الله أكبر عدد ما هو خالق. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في السماء، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما خلق في الأرض، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما بين ذلك، لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله العلي العظيم عدد ما هو خالق. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة 1000 مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة 1000 مرة. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد يحيي ويميت وهو على كل شيء قدير عدد كل ذرة 1000 مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله، صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله، وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة 1000 مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله، صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله، وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة 1000 مرة. اللهم صل وسلم على سيدنا محمد مفتاح باب رحمة الله عدد ما في علم الله صلاة وسلاما دائمين بدوام ملك الله وعلى آله وصحبه عدد كل ذرة ألف مرة في كل لحظة أبدا عدد خلقه ورضا نفسه وزنة عرشه وميداد
كلماته. وإذا حدث النبي اللهم صل وسلم وبارك عليه وعلى فاتحة. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. Alhamdulillah wa sallallahu wa sallam ala rasulillah. Alhamdulillah, we're honored and pleased to have Ustadh Auzair come to us from Dar al-Mustafa, inshallah. And we ask Allah to accept and this visit be love for Allah's sake. And we want students to represent well and take well, inshallah. And I'm normally teaching, so I'll go a little easy because you don't ask people to have edab with you. But since I'm not the teacher, we want to tighten up this halaqah. So instead, have his Muslim sit here to the side of Sufyan. Hamid Hassan and Abu come up to like this line. Ibrahim, whoever you need to move, or Tariq, have him move. Whoever you need to have move. Someone else can come there. And those further back, just come so the halaqah is connected. And we are studying at Dar al-Mustafa. You sit there next to that brother. They said only someone over 40 can lean on a wall. That's for old people or lazy people. And we don't consider any of you lazy or injured. If you're injured, get a chair. Oh, get a chair, get a wall. If you're young and fit, sit up, inshallah ta'ala, and pay attention. Ibn Abbas, he said, Duliltu taliban fa'uziztu matluban. I humbled myself as a seeker, so I was honored when I was sought. And knowledge is sought by adab. And inshallah ta'ala, we want the Dar Mustafa, Al-Rahma, inshallah, Dar Mustafa too, to represent well, seek knowledge of discipline and adab. And barakallah fikum. There's angels surround these halaqat. So you want to have adab with that presence. Angels, Book of Allah, knowledge from Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, those who transmit it. Barakallah fikum.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين وصلى الله تعالى على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم. نويت التعلم والتعليم والتذكر والتذكير والنفع والانتفاع والإفادة والاستفادة والحث على التمسك بكتاب الله وسنة رسوله صلى الله عليه وسلم والدعاء على الهدى والدلالة على الخير ابتغاء وجه الله مرضات يقول بثوابه سبحانه وتعالى. We intend to teach and to learn, to remember and to remind, to benefit and to be benefited by, and to encourage, to hold fast onto the Book of Allah Ta'ala and the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, to call to goodness and to guidance, seeking in all of that Allah Ta'ala and His proximity to Him and His reward. Subhanallah, alhamdulillah, wa la ilaha illallah akbar, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim, adada kulli harfin kutib aw yuktab, abada al-abidin wa dahra al-dahirin, subhanaka la ilma lana illa ma 'allamtana innaka antal alim al-hakim, wa la hawla wa la quwwata illa billahi al-azim, wa hasbunallah wa ni'mal wakeel. اللهم إني أعوذ بك من أن أضل أو أضل أو أزل أو أزل أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أظلم أو أجهل أو يجهل علي. We intend what our pious teachers have intended, and what is in Allah's knowledge of pious intentions. We ask Allah Ta'ala to make us amongst the scholars who act upon that which they have learned, and to grant us ilm al-yaqeen wa ayn al-yaqeen wa haqq al-yaqeen bi khair wa afiyah. So we're continuing, inshallah Ta'ala, from where we left off in the book of the etiquette of seeking knowledge, from the introduction of Imam Nawawi's book, Al-Majmu'. And we covered yesterday in the Rawha, we covered some of what we covered was some of the etiquettes of attending lessons, to always have motivation and determination to always be, working hard and seeking knowledge, to be in a state of constant reading and revision, to never let something stop you from seeking knowledge or asking a question, whether it's being shy or embarrassed to ask such a thing, or, like to have arrogance in your heart over the person you're asking, your teacher or someone like that. And to also purify your heart for the light of Allah Ta'ala, this knowledge to be put into it. And the example that was given was the example of someone having a cup or a container, right? And the knowledge of Allah Ta'ala being like honey or something like a really beautiful and like expensive, like liquid or something being poured into it. To bring your cup to the lesson, to the teacher, clean. Your heart is clean from all the negative traits that the Prophet ﷺ warned us about. To come and your cup is clean. To come and your cup is empty, meaning you come and you want to be filled with this knowledge, this light of Allah Ta'ala. You're not full of delusion that you know better than this person teaching you. And you're not in a state where, for example, you're sitting in the lesson and your heart is somewhere else, at work or at school or with something somewhere else and not present. And so your cup is just full of something else. There's no room for the honey of the light of Allah Ta'ala to come and be cast into your heart. Tamam? And we talked about as well, we also talked about some of the criteria, we talked about the hardships that one might face in seeking knowledge, and how the scholars of the past faced these hardships in ways that compared to today, what we face is a fraction what they faced in terms of like poverty, in terms of like the struggles they went to find teachers to sit with them, the struggle they went to get books, and the books nowadays, you just go online, you find a PDF, you print it. Like back then they had to write them by hand. Like we studied with teachers, they were probably in their 70s at the time. They used to write every single book they studied by hand from the library of the person they studied with. Like they would take turns to get the book out of the library and like write it literally by hand and return it to the teacher's library. And their books were just notebooks, copies of whatever book they were reading at the time. Yeah. And like from how like much they used to like copy their books by hand. One of our teachers, like we're studying with him once, and he was really old and his glasses broke. He never bought new glasses. The whole year he never bought new glasses. He just knew what we were reading to him like from memory, like from writing it over and over again and teaching over and over again, mashallah. So the hardships of the teachers and the scholars of the past, and how being content with what Allah gives you in terms of the dunya, so you're not chasing for more of it, distracting you from knowledge and from higher pursuits and ibadah with Allah Ta'ala. And we talked about as well the criteria, like how to choose a teacher, and how we talked about picking someone who has a chain of transmission. First of all, someone who has they follow the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. Looking at them reminds you of Allah Ta'ala. There's someone who they've excelled in their field, such that other people in the field of study, whether it's fiqh or tawheed or tajweed or whatever, right? Seerah, whatever science it is, they see this person as well as someone of aptitude, of scholarship in that specific field. Tamam? Okay. So now we're going to resume, inshallah ta'ala, and talk about some more etiquettes to have with our teachers and with knowledge in general. Imam Nawawi says, and do not ever be satiated from the companionship of your teachers, because they are like trees that bear fruit. Okay, you never know when the fruit is going to fall and you're going to catch it. So sometimes, someone might say, like, how long do I have to take this? Like, how long do I have to study? Like, how long is the program? How long is the curriculum? And no matter how long it is, even if even if it's 4 years, 5 years, people will finish it and they still can't get enough of being with their teachers, right? Because it goes back to the fact that no matter how much time you spend with them, you will always benefit and learn from them. Just like the tree, the example of the tree, and its fruit is continuous. A tree doesn't stop giving fruit. It gives fruit over and over and over again. And likewise, when someone has that perspective of their teachers, combined with the love they have for them, the love that we talked about, love for this person that taught you about Allah Ta'ala, taught you about the Sunnah of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, taught you about Islam, took you by the hand and removed you from whatever state you were in beforehand to a better state. Yani this kind of love combined with this perception of them that they will benefit you at all moments in time, it leads to this relationship where yani being with them at all times, right? You can be with them at all times and you still can't get enough of it. Like the companions with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, they used to go home to their families after being with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. So then Abu Bakr as-Siddiq was to go home to his family after being with the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and he used to he couldn't sit still. He wanted to go back and be with him. His family would ask him, like, you were with him on the hijrah, you were with him in the cave, you were with him all day, and you can't get enough of it still. He's like, I can't. That's how much they love the Prophet ﷺ. That's how much they recognize the blessing it was having him around. And likewise, inheritors, the prophets, when they come to us in this day and age, it's that kind of relationship where we recognize, no matter how much time you spend with them, you can never get enough. So we ask Allah Ta'ala to benefit us and to make us people of this perspective, inshallah ta'ala, in this kind of adab. And then he continues, Imam Nawawi continues in his book, and he says, when you attend the lesson, there are specific etiquettes as well. So in attending time with your teachers and your lessons, to be in a state, you come and, for example, you dressed appropriately, right? Like people, how much time do they put into what clothes they wear for work, for school, right? So someone comes, they dressed appropriately, they're wearing the best they can dress with, they smell nice, right? They smell nice, they've showered, they're wearing perfume or etir or something like that. They come and their hearts are present with the teacher. They're not, bodies here and their mind is somewhere else. They come and they're present, and so they come prepared outwardly and they come prepared inwardly, and they're ready to receive. And when they arrive, they don't cut between people in the rows and go jump right to the front, bothering everyone. They sit wherever the space, wherever the halaqah ends. So some people, if you go to some parts, some parts of the world, people will push and shove to get to the front, right? They'll step on someone's hand, they'll step on someone's foot, they'll bother someone just to get to a seat they want in the front. But in doing so, they think they're doing a good thing by being earnest to sit in the front with the teacher. But in the process, how many people have they bothered? And bothering your fellow Muslim, stepping on their hand, hurting them, that's haram, that's haram. So to just sit, wherever there's space that's appropriate for you, and to sit there and to be attentive. Tamam? Naam. Just listen attentively to the teacher, to try your best to be close to them so there's space. Instead of sitting far away, even though there's space close up, you sit close up. There's a hadith of the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, right? Where there was a gathering of knowledge, he was teaching, and several people started coming in late. One person came in late, right? And he sat at the back. There was space, he just chose to sit in the back. Another person came in late and he sat with the group. He didn't sit in the back with the other person. He moved up and sat with the group. So Prophet ﷺ praised him for sitting with the people and not sitting in the back. And not sitting in the back apart from them. And so you see, we have to remember that these gatherings that we have, gatherings of knowledge, gatherings of dhikr, Allah Ta'ala tells us in hadith that the Prophet ﷺ told us that these are gatherings where light is poured from the skies. Angels come and attend. The mercy of Allah Ta'ala and His blessings come down upon us in these gatherings. So imagine everyone is here, attentive and listening and benefiting from that. And then someone just comes and decides to sit in the very back, even the space up here. And how much of what people receive here is going to reach him? The angels are here, the light is being poured here, there's mercy here, and someone is just sitting in the back just because they can't be bothered to move forward and sit with the group. So to sit with the group attentively, to sit with the teachers in a way that's befitting of the lesson, That's one of the adab that he talked about here. Tamam? Tamam. And he says to always be, to always ask a question if it comes to mind. If you don't understand anything, to tell the teacher you don't understand. Because even though it may be something trivial or something considered small, okay, the benefit of asking long term and the reward getting from asking long term far outweighs any possible embarrassment or shame someone can experience at that moment in time. He says, if you hear something from the teacher, he provides like a fact or some information or something, right? And you've heard it before, or you've memorized it even. You've heard it so many times, you've memorized it, right? You still listen to it as if it's the first time you've heard it. As if it's the first time you heard it. Out of respect, this is knowledge from Allah Ta'ala that's reaching us, and no matter how many times you hear it, hearing it again is still ibadah. Hearing it again is still potential for reward. طيب. And now, Shaykh Imam Nawawi now mentions like a phrase here that's incredibly profound. He says, وَلَيْسَ بِعَاقِلٍ مَنْ أَمْكَنَهُ دَرَجَةُ وَرَثَةَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ ثُمَّ فَوَّتَهَا. So the Prophet ﷺ, he says in a hadith that the scholars are the inheritors of the prophets. So this clarifies to us the importance of seeking knowledge and the great blessing and reward with it. Imam Nawawi says, وَلَيْسَ بِعَاقِلٍ مَنْ أَمْكَنَهُ دَرَجَةُ وَرَثَةَ الْأَنْبِيَاءِ وَفَوَّتَهَا ثُمَّ فَوَّتَهَا. He says the person who has a chance to be an inheritor of the Prophet and just gives it up is not someone of sound intellect, is not someone who's thinking straight. Someone who has an opportunity for this great reward, someone who has an opportunity to reach this level where they can be from amongst the inheritors of the prophets. The chance is in front of them. All they have to do is just take it and try, right? And they just give it up. This kind of person, he says, like they're not of sound intellect, they're not thinking straight. Just like how, for example, if you have someone, right? If you have someone, like if someone makes them a really good offer, they call it an offer you can't refuse, right? Whether it's a car or a phone, right? A great price, a great model for a great price, and someone turns it down. People will look at him like, what do you do? Like crazy. Like, that's a great deal. Take it, Or someone who has an opportunity, for example, to study at some prestigious school, okay? Or to be part of some, like sports team that's incredibly difficult to try out for and to be a part of, right? And they just turn it away for no reason. Like, what would you say to this kind of person? Like, you're wasting, like, why? Like, you have this great opportunity in front of you, you just throw it away. And so likewise, the opportunity to be amongst the inheritors of the prophets, to give it up, to turn it away without even bothering to try, he says it's not from someone who has aql, it's not from someone who has sound intellect. And so, for example, nowadays, alhamdulillah, we have this opportunity to be in Al-Rahma, right? And there are durus happening routinely. There are gatherings of remembrance you can attend routinely. And so people are busy, right? People are busy. They have schedules. They have school. They have family. So Imam Nawawi is talking about, he doesn't mean the person who, because they're busy with something else, like school or or work to provide for their family or family responsibilities, like they can't make everything because of those things. That's not what he's talking about. He's talking about someone who in their heart, the chances in front of them, they just don't want it. They just don't want it. Or they just don't care, right? As opposed to the person who wants it, they would love to have it. They try their best to make it, right? While juggling the rest of the responsibilities, while juggling the rest of their work and school and family responsibilities. That kind of person, like they're excused. They're doing their best. But someone to not take it at all, if it's presented in front of them, He said that's someone who is deficient in their intellect. Tamam. Naam. He continues and he says, and he continues and he mentions some practical advice now for the student of knowledge. He says, for example, he talks now about memorizing. He says, when someone wants to memorize, whether it's Quran, whether it's in memorizing a lesson, whatever it may be, right? To memorize, he said to do it in a way, right? To do it in a way at a time that's most appropriate for you, at a time and a place most appropriate for you. So he mentions the best possible times one can memorize. He says early in the morning, then he says like at noon, then he says at night, right? And the times he's mentioning are basically times where your focus is at its highest, times where, there's, you wake up in the morning, your mind is fresh, right? Your attention span is there, your focus is there, you're not tired from a long day, your mind is fresh and you can memorize quickly. To do it in a place, he says, where there are not many distractions. So compare someone, for example, they try to memorize and they're sitting like on the side of the road, for example, right? Or for example, someone who's memorizing somewhere with like screens and just people around, distractions, they're not going to get very far. But to do it somewhere where there's quiet, there's tranquility, and they're at a time when they're focused. There are incredible stories you can read. You read about the memory of some of the scholars of the past. Like Imam Shafi'i, his memory was so strong. He would read a page once, and he would memorize it immediately. And what he used to do when he used to read, he used to cover a page, and read that one, read the first one, then cover that one, and read the second one. Because if he didn't cover a page, right, he would memorize both at the same time, and he get the order mixed up. So the strength of their memory of those people of the past, right, they go back to two things. The first thing is, right, the era they lived in, okay, they didn't have many distractions. So even just like right now, if you were to sit here and try to read and focus, right, there's like a heater on over here making noise, right? Like the lights are on, in the summertime there's AC on or there are fans on, all these things are like they're subconsciously, right? They're in the background, they're subconsciously making it harder for you to focus. We just don't realize it because this is our life nowadays. But go somewhere one day and turn everything off. No fans, no AC, no heaters, nothing, no ambient noise. It's just you in silence. And you'll see a massive difference. Massive difference. Yeah. In fact, most people, if they were to be in that kind of environment, they'd probably feel strange, right? Because most of us aren't used to that. No screens, no ambient noise, just silence, And the second reason their memories were so strong, the people of the past, it goes back to a really important principle. Imam Shafi'i, one day, he was walking and there was a woman near him and a breeze came and lifted her skirt a bit and he saw her ankle. He went home and he was reading like usual and he realized like he read the page once and it wasn't sticking. He had to read it twice and then he memorized it. So he goes to his teacher and he goes to his teacher Wakir and he complained to him. He's like, what happened to me? I used to be able to read it once and it would stick. I had to read it twice today. And so he told him that the reason it happened to him was because of what he saw that day on the street. He saw a woman's ankle, a woman who wasn't his mahram. He saw her ankle and just that affected his memory. So light of Allah Ta'ala, memorizing it, and you are embedding something that's from the light of Allah Ta'ala, this knowledge into your heart when you memorize. And so the example of the cup again, right? Things that we do that can, influence our heart and put something in it that makes it hard for that honey to be poured in it. So nowadays, and it's really unfortunate, but like imagine trying to guard your gaze in the modern era. with phones, with TV. You go on a website and all you want to do, for example, is like check the news, and there are ads all over the place, right? That show you things you don't want to see. Yeah. Or you go on, like, you want to watch something, something completely, like, you want to read about something on the internet, and you have to go through how much just like filth to get to what you want, you know? So guarding your gaze is difficult in the modern era, but it's possible for someone. You can make use of things like, things you can add to your computer, to your laptop, to your web browser to block out the ads. But ultimately, if someone is sincere and, they try their best to guard their gaze, Allah will give them what they ask for, and they can have a memory like Imam Shafi'i. Like, he continues and he says, and he mentions the saying of Ibn Abbas that Shaykh Abdul Karim mentioned previously. He said, Ibn Abbas said, "Dhaliltu taliban fa'aziztu matluban." He said, I humbled myself as a student and I became honored by being sought, like being sought by as a teacher. Yani. He humbled himself as a student, meaning what? Yani, he went through the turmoils of like student life. Yani. He attended the lessons. He was humble with his teachers. He had good adab. He would ask. He would revise. Daliltu taliban. And what happened? فَعَزِزْتُ مَطْلُوبًا. And then he reached a point where, alhamdulillah, the whole ummah was chasing after him, seeking his knowledge. But that didn't happen except by the first thing, by the humility before knowledge, before his teachers. Now, and he says, from amongst the most important adab or etiquette is to have lofty aspirations. Lofty aspirations. Lofty aspirations, yani. And if you look at all the stories Imam Nawawi has mentioned, right? And if someone could ask, like, he's talking about Imam Shafi'i memorizing a page after reading it once. He's talking about people, like, every single moment of their life is spent in it reading and like studying and like writing and authoring and teaching and learning. And it, like, us as normal people, like, someone could say, like, that's not for me, like, I can't do that, Well, part of having lofty aspiration is to take as role models, right? Take as role models the highest possible part of the spectrum. The highest possible part of the spectrum. So you take them as your role model, and then you follow where you land, depending on your sincerity and tawfiq from Allah Ta'ala. There's a story of one of the pious ones. He went to his father, he was with his father, and his father asked him, "Oh, my son, like, who do you want to be like in this world?" And his son said, like, "I want to be like you, Dad," And he's like, "Why? Why do you want to be like me?" He said, "I wanted to be like Sayyidina Ali growing up, and look where I landed. Like, where's Sayyidina Ali, and look where am I? You want to be like me? Where are you going to be? You're going to be down there. Like, try to be better than me. Be like Sayyidina Ali, be like the Prophet Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, be like them, and you'll land somewhere, somewhere in the middle, inshallah." So to have lofty aspirations, to be someone who is not content with a little bit, to be someone who, to want to be like Imam Shafi'i, to want to be like those people, because Allah Ta'ala, He gave them, and He can give us too. The same God who gave them will also give us. And just like how it was easy for Him to give them, it's easy for Him to give us. When you read Imam Nawawi's books, most of his books start the same. Most of his books start with Alhamdulillah al-Bar al-Jawad. Al-Jawad. Al-Jawad means like the generous one who gives. He frequently gives. Most of his books, he starts it with this phrase. It's not because, it sounds pretty in Arabic. It's not because of that reason. He's reminding the reader, Allah is generous. And just like how He gave people in the past everything they asked for and more, He will give people in the present day everything they ask for and more, and will continue to give in the future people everything they ask for and more. So to have lofty aspiration, to have a good opinion of Allah Ta'ala, just like how He gave the people of the past, He will give now to the person who is sincere, who will give to us if we're sincere and we turn to Him and we just ask. We have high aspirations and we ask with sincerity, and Allah will give. So He says to have lofty aspirations and to not be content with just a small amount of what you can acquire, especially when there's a much more you can attain. And he says after that, he mentions that he says to take advantage of one's youth and free time before they become busy. Take advantage of one's youth and free time before they become busy, because as someone gets older and the responsibilities pile up, right? Parents get old, gotta look after them. Get married, look after your wife. Have kids, look after your kids. Plus, parts of your time immediately get given to them. Parts of your energy, parts of your your mental, your mental energy, your ability to give to knowledge, to give yourself to knowledge becomes decreased because of responsibilities that come with age. So take advantage of the time you have in this life while you're young, before you're loaded with responsibilities. And he says as well, tamam. Now he also mentions, he says to always make your main reference point your teachers, right? And not the books. Meaning what? Meaning like some people, right, they will just go straight to the books and read. And the problem is, they don't even know if they've understood properly what they've read. So it's one thing to be able to read, it's another thing to know whether you've understood properly or not. And so when your main reference point are your teachers, you go to them first. They give you the tools to read and understand. Then when you go to the books, everything makes sense, and you're satisfied knowing that what you read and understood is exactly what the teachers taught you. That's exactly like what the teachers taught you. Tamam? Then he mentions the saying of Imam Shafi'i where he says, the person, he's a man tafaqqaha min al-kutub ضيع al-ahkam. He says the person who, they come to understand their religion just through books, they've lost all the rulings. Like they're the person who, they just took from books that teachers, they misunderstood, and ultimately they're going to misapply everything they've read. But to make their main reference points in our lives, our teachers, because ultimately the teachers are the inheritors of the prophets, not the books. The books are just, they chronicle information, but the teachers are the ones that are living examples of the inheritors of the prophets. He continues and he says, he gives some advice here. He says that in the beginning of one's phase of study, they should focus on fiqh and nahu. They should focus on fiqh, they should focus on learning the rulings of how to pray properly, how to fast properly, how to give zakat properly, how to make hajj properly, how to marry properly. These things are given higher priority because one, you need to learn it for yourself to live a proper life according to the Sunnah of the Prophet ﷺ, and two, it fulfills the communal need, and people in your community need to know these things as well, and they're going to ask about it. And so when you learn them first, able to help more people immediately. And secondly, he talks about Arabic grammar, nahu, how it's important, because if you don't know Arabic language in it, you can't read the books, you can't understand. So to have Arabic language that'll help you understand the books, and that's the first thing. The second thing after that, to understand fiqh, to understand how to pray and worship properly, how to lead your life properly as a Muslim, for yourself firstly, and then afterwards for the people of your community. Tamam? The last point he makes some last 2 points. He says to be someone who is a source of benefit for his peers. To be a source of benefit for your peers. There's stories you hear about, for example, about people who study at law school or other graduate schools, where the competition between peers is so intense, people will actually go, if there's, for example, an assignment or something, the person who finds the answer first in whatever book in the school library, they'll tear the page out so no one else from their peers can get to the answer and keep it to themselves. So that's an excellent example of negative competition and terrible adab, right? But he says to be someone, you're a source of benefit for your peers and your classmates. You find something new, you find something helpful, you point them to it, right? You take them by the hand, you show them, hey, look, I found this out. It's pretty beneficial, right? Whether it's something you read about in a book, something you heard about from a teacher, whatever it may be, something you discovered, to help them also, to help them also to attain the same things you would love to attain for yourself. This is ultimately acting upon the hadith of Prophet ﷺ, where he says that لا يؤمن أحدكم حتى يحب لأخيه ما يحب نفسه من الخير. None of you believe or have complete belief or perfect belief in Allah Ta'ala until you want for your brother in Islam, you want for your brother what you want for yourself. So to have that state where you are in a state where you are able to benefit those around you, your peers and your classmates, and not be someone who just, you want it for yourself and everyone else can just sink. To be a source of benefit for others is also for important etiquette of seeking knowledge. The last thing he mentions is some etiquette when it comes to books. He says basically that if you have to borrow a book from someone, right, you take care of it and you return it to the person in good condition, in a timely manner, not in a way where like you borrow someone's book and then like you have it for months or years and they can't ever use it again, or you give it back to them and it's all tattered up or something. To take care of these tools of knowledge, books, and like in our modern day, for example, even like you can say like like MP3 players and like CD cassettes and things like that store knowledge. Take care of them from people about when people lend them to you, and to return them in a timely manner. And so with that, Imam Nawawi finishes his section on the etiquette of seeking knowledge in the introduction to his book Al-Majmu'. And ultimately, the most important thing for us to remember, is that the path of seeking knowledge, right? It's something that Allah will make it easy for the person, right? Allah will make it easy for someone once they begin to take it. And that Allah Ta'ala, just like how He gave the scholars of the past, the students of the past, He will continue to give. That's the most important thing to remember, right? Allah Ta'ala is not greedy or stingy. He's not stingy, And this applies to everything in life. Whether it's, someone who wants something in terms of knowledge, someone who wants something in terms of for their family, or something for like, their personal life, whatever it may be. And Allah is Al-Jawad. Like every single one of his books, almost all of them start with this phrase. Alhamdulillah al-Barru al-Jawad. Alhamdulillah, praise to Allah Ta'ala, the most generous, the one who is oft giving. Reminding us before we ever go on before we ever start any project in life or anything in life, to always remind ourselves first and foremost, Allah is going to take care of us. And if you turn to Him and you're sincere, right, and you want Him to give you what's best for you, versus you just want what you think is best for yourself. There's a difference now. Wanting what's best for you, whatever Allah gives you, knowing that He's wise and He's going to take care of you, versus you just want what you think is best for yourself. Like, give me this, Allah, or I don't want it. To be sincere and to ask Him to give you that which, in His wisdom, He knows is best for you. That is ultimately the right mindset to have. That'll make life easier for anyone, no matter what they start in life, whether it's seeking knowledge or any other personal venture. So with that, we can clear our lessons, and we ask Allah Ta'ala to make us amongst the people that act upon all these adab and etiquette and the siha that Imam Nawawi gives, that He makes us amongst the people that can has these traits engraved in their heart and embodied in their actions, and make each one of us keys to goodness for ourselves and our families and our community. And Allah Ta'ala accepts our actions, bless with Ramadan, and He blesses the community of the Al-Rahma in Detroit, Michigan. And He makes every single student here a source of lights for their families and communities. And He makes us all people who can bear and carry this religion of God to the four corners of the world, and to help it reach people and guide them to that which is beneficial to them in this world and next. We ask Allah to accept that from us, to grant us beneficial knowledge, to grant us the ability to act upon it and to teach it in a way that makes the Prophet ﷺ happy with us. And we intend what our pious teachers have intended from pious intentions and goals. وإلى حضرة محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم الفاتحة. نشهد أن لا إله إلا الله